today. Oh, okay. Ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you for having me this afternoon. My name is Larry Stauber. I'm the incumbent Court of Appeals judge. I have an election this fall, and obviously I'm going to be asking you for your support. Whenever I meet with people, I first try to tell them a little bit about me. I grew up in the small town of Proctor, which is kind of a suburb of Duluth, and I live in that area right now. My wife is a guidance counselor at the school district in Duluth, and I have 2 daughters. One of them was a school social worker for a number of years and then took her bar exam and is now a lawyer. My other daughter is in graduate school for literacy. That's part of education at Vanderbilt University. I served 4.5 years in the military after going to college in Duluth. And I served in Germany, actually, with the United States Army Criminal Investigation Command. Initially, I was an infantryman and an infantry officer, and I jumped out of airplanes. So the military was a fun experience for me. My wife and I got to travel a little bit in Europe, and I loved it. After the military, I went to law school, and I went to law school in Chicago. Was awarded a Juris Doctor degree, which is basically a law degree. And then I came back to Duluth, where I opened a small law practice. My law practice actually grew to about 5 lawyers, and in the end we were down to 2, my partner and I. We partnered together for 25 years. His name was Mike Leon. I did every kind of law that you could think of as a sole practitioner and as a small partnership. In addition, I did some public defending for 28 years, basically some criminal law, a lot of child protection work, and some juvenile delinquency work. I also served as a guardian ad litem. My practice of law consisted mostly of real estate, probate work, adoptions, litigation, contracts, just about any sort of thing that a small practitioner would do. It gave me a broad experience in the law that many judges never ever have. And remember, I did that now for 31 years. At the end of my 31 years, an opportunity came open for me on the Minnesota Court of Appeals. I applied for it. There was a merit selection process of 25 candidates. It was winnowed down to 12 that were interviewed, and the top 3 then went to the governor. This is typical of the judicial selection process in Minnesota. I was selected. Luckily, I interviewed and was selected by the governor, and now I've served for about 2.5 years on the Court of Appeals. Now, a little about the Court of Appeals itself. The Court of Appeals is a real different court. It's not like your courts, your county courts in the local areas of the state, where a judge handles all sorts of arraignments and criminal cases of every type, civil cases. The Court of Appeals actually is a reviewing court. It reviews alleged errors that have been made by the lower or district courts to see whether or not there should be a change in the decision, a remedy, a reversal, or some sort of corrective process done. We hear probably about 2,500 cases a year. These cases are generally heard by oral argument. We don't retry the cases. We hear the oral argument of the lawyers who were involved in the case at the district court. We read the briefs and memos, we review the district court file, and then we make our decisions and write opinions. One of the decisions and opinions that I wrote recently was the I-35 bridge collapse case. It was a major decision, a very difficult case, involved a multitude of areas of law, and I'm proud that I think we've got that decision right. Now, if a litigant wants to go further in the judicial process, they obviously can ask the Supreme Court to review a decision of the Minnesota Court of Appeals. That happens occasionally. I've written many other decisions, criminal decisions, decisions on big companies and their insurance company, decisions on real estate matters, on how titles are to be examined, and decisions on condemnation cases. Over the last 2.5 years, I've calculated that I've probably written close to 200 opinions. Each one of those cases will take me several days to analyze, to hear, and to write. It's a difficult job, and especially when you're fairly new, it takes some time to get acclimated to the process and learn the research. I enjoy the Court of Appeals, and I'd very much like to return to the Court of Appeals for a normal 6-year term. Now, with regard to the election, people don't really know much about the elective process for judges. How do you determine whether a judge is a good judge or a bad judge? I say it's fairly simple. Call any attorney or any resident or any judge in the Duluth, Minnesota area, and they'll tell you about me. And generally, I think they'll tell you that I'm a pretty good guy, that I was a great lawyer, and that I was conscientious and, most importantly, honest. I was always honest with the court. The other thing I would ask people to do is similarly call my opponent's community. In this case, my opponent is from International Falls. His name is Dan Griffith, and I would simply ask you to call the people up in his community. And that's kind of enlightening because the lawyers in his community have invited me up there. They all support me, and they're putting out my signs. And that tells you something about my candidacy. One of the issues in this election, and probably for one of the first times, is that the Republican Party has decided to endorse candidates for the judiciary. That has never happened historically. The Democratic Party doesn't endorse, the Independence Party doesn't endorse, and it leaves, for me, a very bad taste in my mouth because it politicizes the judiciary, and that's the last thing we want, is a political judiciary. So I have continued to follow the Minnesota Judicial Code, and I've taken the Minnesota State Bar Association pledge of nonpartisanship, agreeing that I will not bring politics into my elective process whatsoever. And, you know, it's interesting that in some states, millions and millions of dollars are spent on judicial elections due to the political interference in the process. I always try to quote Justice Sandra Day O'Connor of the recently retired from the United States Supreme Court, and I'll probably won't get it right here, but she says the last thing that litigants need when they walk into the courtroom is to worry about whether or not the judge that's hearing their case is involved in a political party or has a political ideology that might influence his or her decision on their case. And that's why I have chosen to stay nonpartisan, and obviously my opponent has not done so. So I'm simply going to ask that you vote for me. I'm a good nonpartisan judge. I've got tons of experience, both on the court and off the court. I come from a strong and good family base, and most importantly, I'm honest and honorable. Thank you for considering me and having me on this program.
Hello, I'm Laura, and I'm going to take a moment to give you some quick facts about Community TV. Community Access serves a wide range of groups, including public, education, and government. These PEG centers exist through franchise agreements between cable companies and cities. Cable providers offer channel capacity, facilities, and equipment to community access centers as a partial compensation to communities for their use of public rights-of-way. This compensation provides the local population with a diverse, independent, and local voice through community media. Our community media station, the North Suburban Access Corporation, is also commonly known as CTV North Suburbs. We are a nonprofit organization governed by a board of directors representing the 10 member cities. The Access Corporation provides three things. It promotes programming by and for the community, manages the access channels and the access facilities, and encourages public use of communications. The purpose of CTV is to provide access to cable communications for the public and to promote and protect the public's right to use community television. As a nonprofit, CTV serves the public. We are here to provide you with a unique access to an effective media outlet. The bottom line is, we exist for you.
At CTV, you'll find digital production classes are affordable and easy to learn. You can learn how to edit, discover what goes on in the control room, or find yourself in front of the camera. Take the professional camcorder class, or access the production truck and master coverage of community events. Call 651-792-7515 or visit ctvnorthsuburbs.org.